hopefully that's helpful. Okay, so I guess that's all I had to say about that for now, apparently. So ignition happens early. But I did tell you that, so during starting, the timing must be at top dead center, but when it's running, it's 25 degrees before. So how do we get it from 25 to the 0? It's an impulse coupling, which you guys will get later, many people. And it's a wind-up spring. And so when the engine's turning very slowly, there's these little dogs that come out, and it winds up a little spring, and it holds the magneto until the piston comes to the top. And it lets go of the spring, goes snap, you hear it pop, and then it fires, and then the piston goes. So that's a whole other class. All right, let's see. Firing order. But for fun, tomorrow, Michael's going to show you guys how to wind an impulse coupling spring.
Yeah. There you go.
It's so simple. Okay, firing order is the order in which cylinders are fired. So just like Fords and Chevys, Continental Lycoming, they got to do it their own way. So cylinder numbering is not standard. Is not standard on opposed engines. Or inline. Radials pretty much aren't inline. So one. For Lycoming, the number 1 is where? You guys know you got one? Right front. And Continental, C-O-N-T-I-N. Sometimes I get lost when I'm writing Continental. The number 1 is right rear. And it's stamped right on there. Don't be ashamed to look. Don't say, I don't know. It's, just look at, that's why they stamp it on there. So you don't have to know. Well, why don't you say something before I move it? Number 1. Don't make fun of me. Okay, can I move it now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, right, left. No, it is not. It is, correct way is in the maintenance manual. It tells you right and left are based upon you standing behind the accessory case.
Okay.
And the reason why that's important is most all aircraft would matter, right? Any single engine Cessna, then where's the engine? Right out in front of you, right? Except a Skymaster twin engine Cessna where one is in front of you and one is backwards. So this engine is faced this way. So, here's the number 1 cylinder. Now it's on this side of the airplane. So it's not pilot's perspective anymore. So it's from the accessory case. Okay, cylinder numbering is not standard. Okay, got that. Let's see. We got point number B here. 4-cylinder opposed firing order. This one I commit to memory is 1, 3, 2, 4. Both Continental and Lycoming. 1, 3, 2, 4. Makes it real easy. And if we were to look at an engine here, let's see. Crankshaft. This cylinder. This one. So Lycoming is 1, 3, 2, 4. Continental is 1, 3, 2, 4. So red is Continental. And blue is Lycoming. So what does the firing look like? Let's see, this one. 1, 3, then 2, then 4. Or 1, 3, 2, 4. So notice it's basically right, right, left, left. Right, right, left, left. 1, 3, 2, 4. Left, left, right, right. Continental, 1, 3, 2, 4. Right, right, left, left. So no matter how you look at it, it's going to end up being a pattern that looks like that. Right, right, left, left. Or left, left, right, right.
Back, forward.
Yep. Yeah, it's just more about right, right, left, left. It's just kind of weird. How you would think it would be balanced out, but it's this way than that way. Just is. They say it's designed for balance and eliminate vibration. So, I don't know. There you go. So 6-cylinder. Cylinder. Cylinder. I will not ask you to remember this because I don't remember this myself. I have to look. It's always printed on the engine. 1, 4, 5, 2, 3, 6. Continental. 1, 6, 3, 2, 5, 4. And since they're both different, then I worked on both of them. I just kept a piece of paper and looked at it and never worried about it. B. This is C. All right, radial engines. Radial engines. Okay, so when I'm talking about radial engines, I'm talking about good old-fashioned, real round engines right there, not the crazy ones I'm going to show you in a minute. So radial engines such as that. Go back over here. Let's see. Oh, where's my thing? Oh, well. I wanted that. Oh yeah, they don't have radial in here. Just the one thing I need. All right, so we're gonna go back to here.
They have no rotary.
That's so different. So different. All right, so radial engine. How many cylinders are there on this? 9. Okay, the wonderful thing about and which way is this going to go is they go this one, then this one, then this one, to the right or to the left?
You're right.
We're looking at the front of the engine. So it's going to go to our left because we're mechanics. So it's backwards. Look at the prop. This is the leading edge. So it's
right to the pilot's perspective, so it's left for us, right?
yes. So it's going to go to the left. Yeah. Okay, so the way radials are done, the top one is the number 1. And then watch this, it goes around. This is going to be number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's going to go around this way. The firing order is 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 2, 4, 6, 8, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 2, 4, 6, 8. This engine happens to be sitting on top dead center of compression stroke on either cylinder number 3 or cylinder number, was that 8? 6, 7, 8. How cool is that? One of the blades always points to top dead center of compression stroke. So when you're doing a once you figure that out, it makes life real easy. You're doing a compression check, you just point the blade here, and it's like, okay, now I can bring it compression here, just point the blade there. So when you get it going. So, all right, so it's all odds, then evens, because it starts with 1, 1, 3, 5. So, Alt-Tab. All right. Radial engines. I'd commit this one to memory. So number 1 is top. That's pretty standard. Remaining cylinders are numbered sequential. Sequential order in the direction of rotation. Direction, which is clockwise for pilot.
What's the order and what?
Remaining cylinders are numbered sequential order in the direction of rotation. So firing order is and this is for single row radial. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 2, 4, 6, 8. That's if it's a 9-cylinder. What if it's a 5-cylinder?
What is that?
1, 3, 5, 2, 4.
2, 4. Yep, this is for a 5-cylinder.
So if it's an odd numbered cylinder total, it just goes by odds and then.
Radial engines always have to have an odd number per each row.
Okay, so all radials are just odds first, then evens after?
The firing order, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the, under the branch is that CW or what is it?
CW
Clockwise for pilot.
Clockwise.
So it's all odds, then evens. That's for a single row radial. Now, if you have a twin row radial, it's complicated. How about I won't even write it, just so you don't have to worry about it. So is order for twin row. The rear row is all odd numbers, and the number one rear is the top. The top rear is 1. The front row is all evens, and the engine fires a rear, then a front. Rear, front, rear, front, rear, front. So that's 1, 12, 5, 7, 16, 9, 2, 13, 6, 17, 10, 3, 14, 7, 18, 11, 4, 15, and then 8. So it's 1, 5, yeah, it's all crazy over there. So.
Offset slightly?
Yes, and they're offset obviously because of cooling. You want to get each one out into the air just a little bit. Oh. All right. That is not all I have by a long shot, but we're shifting gears now. We'll come back to some heavy stuff later. I don't have a lot of time to write a lot of stuff, and we kind of covered all of this. But if I don't write it all, theory of operation for two-stroke. For two-stroke engines, which we covered, right? We can go back to that, two-stroke. And everything's got to happen in 2 strokes, which is 1 stroke, 2 strokes. Down is 1, up is 2. And the way it works is we start by there's the power stroke, which also is the intake stroke. So as the piston comes down, up here at the top, you can see that it's power and it's pushing it down. Well, as it's pushing it down, underneath the piston, it is compressing it. So we're compressing down here on the bottom while we're having the power going on here. So compress, compress, compress. And then it gets to right here and it opens up this area right here, this passageway. And so now the fuel-air mixture, which has been compressed, is going to come back up in here. Well, it's not really the compression stroke per se, but it does force it up here. And at the same time as this is pushed in, the exhaust is pushed out. So it's going to keep coming down and press that fuel-air mixture in here. And you can see here's the exhaust going out. Okay, now it's going to start working its way up. Now as it works its way up, it's going to create a low pressure here, which will allow the fuel-air mixture to come in. There is no camshaft pushing this. They're usually reed valves that are just spring-loaded closed. and just the air pressure pops the little valve open. And anytime there's less pressure on this side, it's going to open up the valve. So now it's going to compress, compress, compress. There, the exhaust stroke or the exhaust valve just closed up. Compress, 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 and we get ignition and power back down. So that's two-stroke. So it's nice because every single time the piston goes down, it's a power stroke, which is why it made a lot more fun in a motorcycle, in my opinion. All right. So we had, oh, what's something weird about that? What's normally down here in a four-stroke engine? Well, this is a crankshaft. What's down in the crankcase area?
Oil.
It's oil.
Yeah.
Well, where's the oil in this?
It's in there.
There is no oil. It doesn't have oil like a car. You don't have a dipstick that goes down. You don't fill the crankcase full of oil. Where's the oil? You have to mix it in the fuel. So if you've got, your chainsaws, your...
More specifically speaking for aviation, right? You're talking about are you talking about four-cylinder just in general, or you're talking about
Four-stroke. I'm talking about two-stroke.
You're just talking about a two-stroke, right?
The two-stroke.
Yeah. Okay.
Just in general, two-stroke.
Okay. All right. I was a little confused. I had to take, but it's kind of confusing.
This is just a two-stroke. Have I ever seen a two-stroke in aviation? I have not. Oh, maybe some ultralights out there have them. I don't know. But
Seaplanes?
no, seaplanes.
RC.
Oh, RC planes.
Nitro engine.
Shh, okay, still not aircraft, but yes, of course. But you're expected to understand this stuff, and you're expected to know it. So there we go. So yeah, so the oil is mixed with the fuel, and so when it comes in and the fuel and the oil spray all this, that's how it gets lubricated. So if you don't mix your oil and your fuel, guess what you get? Seized engine. So they are less efficient because of the way the piston came down. You had the intake valve or intake coming in and the exhaust at the same time. You've got to kind of figure it out. Either you're going to short yourself some fuel air coming in, or you're going to get too much fuel air and let some of it go out the exhaust.
That was gonna be my question. How they control the intake not going out with the exhaust.
Oh, you let it go out. Hey, we did a nice charge in there. So let's see. And that's why, well, I don't know this, but what I do know is, so does anybody ride off-road motorcycles? All right. So in the off-road motorcycle world, you had green stickers and red stickers. And so in California, for years and years and years, you just got a green sticker. That was your license, so to speak. And then they outlawed two-strokes. So as two-strokes became, they started red stickering them, and you can only use them certain times of the year. Outboards are predominantly two-stroke. And then, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, they outlawed all two-strokes for inland waterways. You could only use them for open, Delta area and coastal. So yeah, all the lakes, two-strokes are completely outlawed. And you know why? Because you start your two-stroke and you kind of sit there idling, and you can see the oil coming out of the exhaust. And it's just bubbling up, nice little rainbow color right there. I'm like, ooh, yeah, that's kind of nasty. So that's why they want the four-stroke, because they don't pollute the water so bad. So less efficient and more difficult to lubricate. You don't have to mix the fuel and the oil. Some have oil injection, where they would inject the oil into the fuel. But most of the time, the fuel and oil are mixed. I already said less efficient. So all 4 events, actually 5 events. All 5 events occur in 2 strokes, which is 360 degrees of crank travel. I'm not going to write all of the description, or I will never get through this. All right, then we've got the, here we go, number 6. Theory of operation of the rotary cycle Wankel. The Wankel cycle. All right, which car had this one?
R7,
A
R8.
Mazda RX. All right. EL. Dorito? Yes, it is. It's Dorito technology. So that's that is your rotary Wankel. All right, so slow down. So here we have the power stroke, while we have the exhaust happening here, the intake happening here, and this over here is about to be compression. So let's back this up to here. So here we go. So as this rotates, we can see that we've just got ignition right here, and that's going to be our power stroke coming around. And over here, it's happening, it's compressing right now. So here we go, compression happening here. Over here, we have intake happening. This is already combusted. And now it's going to start to exhaust. This is continue its compression, continue its intake. Thank you. There we go. So you kind of have 3 things happening at once. And instead of, yeah, so it's almost like, you know, power. So you kind of have this going on instead of every 4th thing happening. So these were actually pretty cool engines. They're smooth. They rev pretty high. The only problem that they really had with these things was really it was a smog issue. And if you think about it, these little triangles, that has to seal against this right here. And they had a problem with those seals. The technology just wasn't there to keep these seals in really good shape. And so you had leak by, which would then cause a smog issue. So they just became a problem with that. So is this a 4-cycle or a 2-cycle process?
3. Say 4.
I'm going to go 4 because you have intake, compression.
Power,
Yeah.
all 4. There's none that are
Remember,
simultaneous, but they're also on their own.
It's 4 distinct things. As where 2-stroke is not 2 distinct things. You have intake exhaust happens at the same time. And so that's, yeah. So this happens individually.
So this is counted as a 4-stroke?
I count it as a 4-stroke, yeah. Yeah, or 4-cycle. I wouldn't call it a 4-stroke. I call it 4-cycle because there's no strokes. So let's see, 4-cycle uses a rotor that turns an elliptical housing. 3 power pulses per 360 degree. I'll write that. So let's see, let's say it's 4-cycle.
Before we go on, what is that 360 of crank
Travel.
travel?
You're going to be that guy?
I'm gonna be that guy.
A rotor that turns in an elliptical housing. The word's elliptical.
He's me from last class. I just am able to read it now.
Three power pulses per rotation, and that is in 360 degrees. So not bad. Fewer moving parts. Yeah, no pistons, no rods, no cams, no valves. You can actually have multi-rotor instead of just one. So there we go. All right, diesel, also called compression ignition. And I think that's an important thing to state in aviation because we don't use diesel fuel. We use Jet A, which is diesel fuel, sort of. Well, it is. So I expect to see more and more. I was gonna say compression ignition style Jet A. I don't want to say Jet A because let's go diesel. Diesel compression ignition engines, just because there's this hatred of Jet A. Number one, I'm sorry, Jet A. 100 low lead. There's this hatred of 100 low lead, and a lot of I don't want to say third world countries, but other countries that aren't developed. 100 low lead's really difficult for them to get. You have to worry about the octane rating, which you don't with these engines. So I expect to see more of this. The first one on the market that really took off was the Thielert diesel engine made out of Germany. And Continental bought them, and they called it the Centurion diesel, which we have in our 172 outside. And it's based on a Mercedes engine. And we're having problems with ours. But anyway, so the only real difference between a compression ignition diesel engine and a not is or a regular ignition engine is that the compression ratio is extremely high, and the fuel in like the engines that we're using here, or most aircraft engines, all aircraft engines that use 100 low lead, are a typical valve type operation. By that I want to say they're not direct injection. So either the fuel air mixture is going to come up through the valve. Actually, all of our engines, the fuel air mixture enter an intake valve and go in. All right, and so a diesel or compression ignition, you actually, the only thing going past the intake valve is air, and they have injectors that inject the fuel directly into the combustion chamber at extremely high pressures. I mean, we're talking like 18,000 psi. Does anybody know offhand? I forget. Yeah, but it's in the thousands of psi. So it's super high pressure. But all right, so but now look at modern cars. I mean, we're talking modern cars. Shoot, my car is 2013, and it has direct injection gas. So I think most cars nowadays are direct injection gas anyway, which is a problem, not to get off on this subject because it's more about cars, because of our smog. Our smog system ruins that because we run a tube from the crankcase back in, so all that nastiness now goes across the intake valve and in, and then the fuel is sprayed. Well, we used to use the fuel to clean off the valves as it went in, but now we don't. It's just air and gunk. And as John Schwanner, I think, put it in his book, the Sky Ranch Engineering Manual, why would you ever want to hook a hose from your butt to your mouth? So it's just kind of he was referring to a wet vacuum pumps. All right, so diesel can be two or four stroke, can be 2 or 4 stroke. I don't know of anybody who's actually doing the 2-stroke version. Operates the same as a gas engine, or gasoline engine be the appropriate word, except only air is drawn in through the intake valve. And fuel is directly injected into the cylinder. There is no spark plug, so there's no timing. What happens is because of the compression of the piston, it's high compression, the air gets so hot as it's compressing the air and the fuel sprayed in, it ignites the fuel just based upon the compression temperatures alone. That's why they can be a little finicky to start in very cold weather, and you have glow plugs, which is like a spark plug, but it's not. It's just a little piece of hot wire. And that concept of a glow plug, a hot wire that just glows red hot sticking in the cylinder, is an important concept when we talk back about gasoline engines for aircraft, because when I say, we talk about pre-ignition, we can talk about a glow plug inside of our aircraft engine, which could be a valve that is glowing red hot. Fuel is sprayed in on an aircraft engine and it hits that red hot valve and instantly lights off. That's bad. And I say, well, it's like a glow plug. Well, and I know I get the glow plug is from diesel engines. Let's see. Yep, no ignition is used. No, it has a glow plug. Then if you've never had a diesel engine, the proper way to start is you turn the key on and a little light comes on that says glow plug or it says wait. And the glow plug gets hot and then you go ahead and start it, and then once the engine's off and running, the glow plug shuts down. You don't need it anymore. And there we go. Engine types. Engine types. Let me think here. Maybe we can have a little more fun with this part. I don't think I've got any real test questions about this here.
Why do diesel engines need a vacuum pump?
Why do they need a vacuum pump?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I thought we all thought the same.
I didn't know they needed one.
Yeah, well, my brother says in his F-250 he has like separate vacuum pumps to have all your.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. It's a smog thing.
Is it?
Yeah, because when you go in to get a smog, I think that's one thing they check to make sure the vacuum pump's operating. Yeah, I think it's totally smog. All right, so engine types. I don't know. This is kind of, let me see. So we had pre-World War I. This is out of a book I got. I don't know. So we had the Gnome rotary. The Gnome rotary is a funny one. And a picture's worth 1,000 words, and then we'd be done for the night. Let's leave it at this one. Oh, definitely want this one here. The Gnome rotary. Here we go, Gnome rotary. So in the Gnome rotary, they mounted the crankshaft solid to the airframe, and the cylinders spun around. And you have to slow it way down to kind of see what's going on. So as the cylinders move around, then the piston would kind of move around in it because it more or less stayed the same. That's kind of a weird drawing how it does that. But and so much weirdness about this. Okay, number one, you can't have an oil sump in here because the oil just slung around. So you had to mix the oil with the fuel. And you notice here's the exhaust valve was up here, and it just kind of blew it out. So you had this, and what they used for oil back in the day was castor oil. And so when you see the movies of these pilots wearing the white scarf, the scarf was there because these things blew out the castor oil while they were flying. So they had to continue to wipe their goggles and stuff. So, all right, so castor oil has a fun effect on the human body. Anybody know what that is?
It eliminates the burn of Skydroll.
It also helps you.
It makes the poo come out.
Yeah,
So
if
pilots...
you're pregnant, it helps you have your baby.
Yeah, well, they didn't have pregnancy problem with these pilots, but they definitely had the poo problem. So aside from the fact that they only had the craps, there's no throttle. They had what they called a coupe switch, C-O-U-P. So it's because it's all French stuff. So we'd say coupe. And so you would start it up, and they start at wide open throttle. And the way that you would throttle it back is you'd hit this little switch, which would ground out the magnetos and kill the magnetos. So it'd be full on, full off, full on, full off. And so you could, idle it like that, I guess. So you have that problem. Now, another problem that you should recognize from Phil's class is you have a very large mass spinning about in front of you. What is that called?
Gyroscope.
A gyroscope. They did not like to turn worth a crap because you had this huge gyroscope on the front. So they performed poorly, gave you the crap, the shits, and you couldn't really idle these things. I mean, it's like you kind of line up on the runway and kill it. So let me see. I think I've got... me see here.
The gnome rotor, that's the one with the one, permanent control arm or something like that, right? Or not control arm. Connecting rods.
That's right, I remember that one.
I was looking at it, so I was like, yeah.
Just blew the hair off the top of their
Yeah, that's what happened to me too.
All right, so you get the idea. Gnome rotary. So the crankshaft, I'm not going to write a bunch of notes here. Crankshaft mounted the airframe, crankcase and cylinders rotated. The pros, no need for counterweighted crank. Oh, we have to talk about that one. Great cooling because the cylinders actually went around in the air, so great cooling. The air-cooled cylinders all have direct air blast, plus they move. Cons, they had the oiling problem. Centrifugal force threw oil out after its first trip through the engine. So you had, which you're going to run out of first, oil or fuel. So flight time was limited by oil quantity. Castor oil fuel blend caused pilots to become nauseated and the poo. Gyroscopic effect on turning. Spinning mass created problems turning. So, yeah. So, I've got the Gnome rotary. We've got the Curtis OX5. It sounds like a very fast. There we go, the Curtis OX5. Something that really sticks with me, and I don't have a picture of it, I don't think, but I did not realize, until not that long ago, that aircraft engines have been around a lot longer than aircraft carburetors. A carburetor was something that came out much later. They actually had a calibrated leak that would drip down on some sort, I want to say it was like rocks or something that was embedded in the exhaust pipe. And so it would drip into something, and then the fumes would then go up near the intake. And that was the first carburetors, really. That's not a carburetor to me, but that's how they actually did fuel.
So they made a sauna?
Yes, like a fuel sauna that went up. And yeah, and that's how the Wright Flyers actually worked. They were not able to throttle this thing at all. So same thing, it started up and there it went. You could not control it. I mean, that's just crazy to think about. But this is an early American V8 liquid-cooled aircraft engine. You can tell it's liquid-cooled because you really don't see any cooling fins anywhere on here, so it has to be liquid-cooled. Built by Curtis, first American-designed aircraft engine to enter mass production, although it was considered obsolete when it did so in 1917. All right, we have then World War II engines. World War II. We got the inline engines. Inline engines. All right, so inline. We have the American Ranger engine. I don't think this is a Ranger. I have built one or two Ranger engines that look very similar to this, but I think this one is not a Ranger. And it is upside down. And the reason why it is upside down is because propellers are quite lengthy, and you've got to get the crankshaft up as high as you could. So now imagine if you put the crankshaft here, and now the cylinders are all up here, the pilot has poor visibility. So got to get the crankshaft and put the cylinders on. Well, the problem with these engines is that this cylinder gets cooled pretty well, and then it just diminishes as it goes, and these run hotter than hell. So you do have the problem with cooling. Okay, so the pros were less surface area. They are streamlined as opposed to that gnome or even a radial engine. Inverted, better pilot visibility. They got cons, difficult to cool back cylinders, a poor power to weight ratio. So they weight a lot for what little power they give you. Just look at the size of that crankcase. It's gigantic, you know, compared to the 6 cylinders. I mean, look at an 0470. It's a lot smaller. The Ranger, the thing I could say about the Ranger engines are, it's a shame that Ranger engines don't have a plexiglass crankcase, because they are beautiful. They're like a Swiss watch. I mean, it's just every piece is so gorgeously built and manufactured that it's just a shame to hide them inside of an engine. Yeah.
Did they come up with this might be a history buff problem, but did they come with the inline engines? Wasn't that strictly because they're shooting for the planes during the war?
I don't think
That's
so.
why they built this, so they could have the gun shoot out?
I don't think so.
Be able to see better, because their guns are out here and they couldn't.
No, yeah, I don't think
It
so.
was in the center, like,
They didn't. I don't
it's
think
the
they
other way around.
used.
They were in the center.
I don't think they used any of these in military fighter planes. They used the Allison V12s and big radials.
Yeah.
And they did do one where they shot out the crankshaft. What was that one? The P. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
which was a horrible one because the crankshaft is really long and then also turning tendencies. Okay, so we had the inline engines. Yeah, okay, I got that. I don't know why. So, World War II and beyond. Oh, and I'm almost out of time. That's probably a good place to stop, isn't it? All right.